A queen turns a pearl into a drink to impress Mark Antony. The Banquet of Cleopatra is a historical painting, not a literal snapshot. It stages Cleopatra at a banquet with Mark Antony present, using image and gesture to tell the story. The painting centers on a pearl being dissolved before it is drunk. That detail turns the scene from jewelry into performance, with the drink itself carrying the display. The point is cost and status, made visible in one costly act. The banquet becomes a display meant to impress Antony through waste, wealth, and control. What remains is a simple image, a pearl used as theater, not jewelry. The painting leaves Cleopatra's banquet frozen around that one gesture. Walter Tin Kitsnes Akiu was listed as Caucasian on football documents so he would not be segregated from his teammates. Akiu was the first person of Asian descent and the first native Hawaiian to play in the NFL. He had already built a four-sport college career at the University of Dayton. The label on the documents kept him with the Dayton Triangles instead of being separated from teammates. He played mostly halfback, but also filled in at kicker, defensive back, and return specialist. That paperwork gave him access to the field under a label that did not match his identity. He could line up, travel, and stay with the squad as the season moved on. After football, Akiu spent about 30 years as a wrestler, headlining bouts on the West Coast and in the Miami Valley. He also refereed until at least the late 1950s. Agnes Inglis built a cataloging system for the Labadie collection instead of using a standard library catalog. At the University of Michigan Library, she became head curator of the anarchist collection. The material did not fit neat library categories, so she organized items by subject and context, not by a conventional filing scheme. Related materials stayed together because their meaning stayed together. That made the Labadie collection easier to expand and easier to use. The system could absorb new material without losing its connections. She spent the rest of her life expanding, organizing, and opening the collection to the public. The archive became a working resource, not a closed cache. At Valamidia, people entered Bronze Age tombs centuries later in the Iron Age and left offerings to the dead. The tombs had been built in the Bronze Age, then stood in the landscape long after their original burials ended. In the Iron Age, visitors went back inside those older tombs and placed offerings there for the dead. That return shows the site was still used ritually, not simply abandoned after the Bronze Age. Valamidia became a place of later memory, where an older tomb could still receive gifts for the dead. Isabel Fiedler began as tutor to 70 women students in 1900, and retired after that number had grown to more than 800. At the University of Sydney, her role was tied specifically to women students. She worked within one institution as their numbers steadily increased. The change was gradual, spanning nearly 4 decades from her appointment in 1900 to her retirement in 1939. Her job kept pace with that growing student body. By 1939, more than 800 women students were enrolled. The scale of her work was no longer a small tutorial group. Her career became a measure of expansion in women's education at the University of Sydney. One appointment grew alongside the institution's changing student body. Martin P. Nielsen called the Ring of Nestor a most amazing find, then later doubted whether it was authentic. The object was known as the Ring of Nestor, and Nielsen was one expert voice judging it as a historical find. His praise and doubt show a change in expert judgment, not a change in the object itself. The question was authenticity, meaning whether the ring was genuinely ancient or not. Once authenticity was questioned, the ring's status changed from celebrated find to debated object. It became known as something admired and examined at the same time. That uncertainty helped keep the Ring of Nestor in view, because its fame now included the doubt around it. Nielsen's shift left one object with two histories, praise and suspicion. A reggae musician formed a soccer-themed political party for South Africa's first democratic election. His name was James Mange, and the party entered a moment when South Africa was opening its first democratic vote to new participants. Music, sport, and politics met in one campaign. The party used soccer as its theme, so the campaign could speak through a familiar national game instead of a standard political image. That unusual framing was the mechanism. It competed in South Africa's first democratic election, where the theme made it stand out among more conventional parties. The campaign became notable for its form as much as its participation. James Mange's party is remembered because a reggae musician brought soccer into the ballot box. In that election, the unusual party form became the story. New Tide was abandoned after many contributors left the country or joined the Chinese Literary Association. New Tide depended on those contributors to keep each issue moving. When they stopped being available, the magazine lost the people doing the work. Some contributors left the country, and others joined the Chinese Literary Association. Those two shifts pulled the magazine's support away at the same time. Without enough contributors, New Tide could not continue as before. The publication was abandoned instead of being carried forward. Its end came through movement, not one dramatic break. The magazine simply lost the people who sustained it.